In the pre-dawn darkness of January 3, American military forces swept into Venezuela's presidential compound in a brazen nighttime raid that has sent shockwaves through the international community. What happened next would fundamentally challenge the very foundations of the global order established after 2 world wars claimed 90 million lives. Within hours, President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, were in U.S. custody. American forces simultaneously struck Venezuelan military installations, killing at least 80 people, and began seizing control of the nation's vast oil infrastructure, the largest petroleum reserves on planet Earth. By sunrise, the rules that have governed international relations for nearly 8 decades lay shattered on the ground. This wasn't a peacekeeping mission authorized by the United Nations. It wasn't a coalition effort with international backing. It wasn't even approved by the U.S. Congress. This was something the post-World War II order was specifically designed to prevent: one nation using raw military force to seize another's sovereign territory and natural resources. And it was all done on Donald Trump's orders. The foundational principle that just died. To understand the magnitude of what just happened, you need to understand a principle so fundamental to international relations that most people take it for granted: nations own the natural resources within their borders. This isn't a courtesy extended only to wealthy nations or powerful ones. Under international law, every sovereign state, from the mightiest superpower to the smallest island nation, possesses the inherent right to control its own natural wealth. They can extract it, preserve it, sell it, or even waste it. The choice belongs to them alone. This principle runs throughout the United Nations Charter, which explicitly supports state sovereignty and self-determination in Articles 1 and 55. The Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States grants every nation full permanent sovereignty over all its wealth, natural resources, and economic activities. Article 2(4) of the UN Charter is even more direct: a nation cannot use military force on another country's sovereign territory without that nation's consent, without UN Security Council authorization, or unless acting in legitimate self-defense. These aren't suggestions. They're the load-bearing walls holding up the entire structure of international peace and stability. They were written in the aftermath of the trenches of World War I, the horrors of Hitler's aggression, and conflicts that killed 90 million people across 2 global wars. The UN Charter was designed to stop nations from doing exactly what Trump just did. How it went down. The operation was conducted without congressional authorization, a detail that should alarm anyone who remembers that the U.S. Constitution explicitly grants Congress, not the President, the power to declare war. According to reports, U.S. Special Forces executed a coordinated nighttime assault. While one team stormed the presidential compound to capture Maduro and Flores, other units struck Venezuelan military bases across the country. The strikes killed at least 80 Venezuelan personnel who, by all accounts, posed no imminent threat to the United States. Simultaneously, American forces moved to secure Venezuela's oil infrastructure, effectively seizing control of facilities that manage the world's largest petroleum reserves. The operation's scale and coordination suggested months of planning, yet Trump claims there was no detailed plan for what would happen after Maduro's removal. As news of the raid spread, Venezuelans poured into the streets. Some danced and celebrated, thrilled to see the end of Maduro's brutal regime. But their joy would prove tragically premature. Meet the new boss, handpicked by the old boss's enemy. In the hours following Maduro's capture, Trump made an announcement that stunned observers: he would leave Maduro's own vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, in charge of Venezuela. Let that sink in. After toppling a regime he labeled illegitimate and brutal, Trump installed that same regime's second-in-command as his chosen leader. Rodriguez's initial response captured the absurdity: what is being done to Venezuela is a barbarity. She later softened her tone: presumably after calculating the alternatives to cooperation with the American military forces now occupying her country. Why would Trump choose Rodriguez? The answer appears to be pure pragmatism devoid of principle. She possesses extensive management experience in Venezuela's oil industry, the real prize in this operation. She also ran Venezuela's intelligence apparatus, giving her intimate knowledge of the very machinery of repression that made Maduro's rule so terrifying. And perhaps most importantly, she maintains strong ties with U.S. Republicans in the oil industry. Trump made his expectations crystal clear: Rodriguez would remain in power only so long as she does what we want. He then added a threat that should chill anyone who values democracy: if she doesn't do what's right, she is going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro. The message wasn't subtle. Do what benefits American oil interests, or face the consequences. The democracy fighter Trump rejected. The most revealing aspect of Trump's post-invasion decisions wasn't who he chose to lead Venezuela, it was who he rejected. Maria Corina Machado stands as one of the most remarkable figures in modern Latin American politics. A fearless advocate for democracy, she continued fighting for free elections even as Maduro's regime systematically killed, tortured, detained, and forcefully disappeared people who dared challenge his rule, according to Human Rights Watch. When Maduro banned her from running in the 2024 presidential election, her political movement fielded a substitute candidate and, despite massive state repression, won by a staggering 37-point margin. For her courage in leading Venezuela's democratic resistance, Machado was awarded the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. She enjoys the support of approximately 65% of Venezuelans. So naturally, Trump dismissed her as lacking the respect needed to lead Venezuela. According to inside sources, the real reason for Trump's rejection was far pettier: Machado offended his ego by winning the Nobel Peace Prize he desperately covets. Pause for a moment to appreciate the absurdity. Trump apparently dreams of winning a peace prize while simultaneously deploying military forces to invade sovereign nations, ordering strikes that kill dozens of people who posed no threat to America, and now threatening violent expansion against peaceful neighbors. We're gonna run Venezuela, but how? In the days following the invasion, Trump made a series of statements about Venezuela's future that ranged from vague to alarming. We're gonna run Venezuela, he announced confidently, though what exactly that means remains unclear. When pressed for details, he said administration officials would designate various people to manage the country and promised, "We're gonna let you know who those people are." The lack of any coherent plan has led many observers to question why there wasn't a detailed strategy in place before toppling Maduro. It's reminiscent of Trump's approach to healthcare, promising to repeal the Affordable Care Act while having only a concept of a plan for what would replace it. Trump claims he'll provide the vision for how Venezuela should be run and expects his hand-picked leader to execute that vision under threat of military force. But visions without plans have a way of producing disasters, and Venezuelans are understandably terrified about what comes next. All for the black gold. Let's be clear about what this invasion is really about: oil. Not democracy. Not human rights. Not regional stability. Oil. Venezuela sits atop approximately 303 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, larger than Saudi Arabia, larger than Russia, larger than any other nation on earth. For decades, American oil companies have watched these reserves with a mixture of desire and frustration, unable to fully access them due to Venezuela's state control and later international sanctions. Now, Trump has used military force to lay claim to these reserves on behalf of private oil investors. Fox News, heavily aligned with big oil interests, cheered the invasion. Their coverage barely mentioned the Venezuelan people's aspirations for democracy, focusing instead on the strategic value of the nation's energy resources. This is imperialism stripped of its usual pretenses. No talk of spreading democracy. No claims of defending human rights. Just raw, unvarnished resource grab enforced at gunpoint. The Maduro problem nobody's talking about. Here's an uncomfortable truth: Nicolas Maduro was genuinely terrible. Human Rights Watch documented systematic atrocities under his regime. His government killed, tortured, detained, and forcefully disappeared people whose only crime was seeking democratic change. Like Trump, Maduro retained the support of about 30% of his citizens, but the other 70% wanted him gone. So yes, Maduro's departure is not something anyone should mourn. The problem isn't that he's gone, it's how he was removed and what came after. By using military force without international authorization, Trump established a precedent that any nation with sufficient military power can simply take what it wants from weaker neighbors. By installing Maduro's own vice president rather than supporting Venezuela's democratic movement, Trump revealed that this operation has nothing to do with helping the Venezuelan people. The brutality machine Maduro built, the intelligence services, the repression apparatus, the corrupt networks, remains intact. Only now it serves new masters in Washington instead of Caracas. Venezuelans who danced in the streets celebrating Maduro's fall are experiencing crushing disappointment. The domino effect nobody's prepared for. Trump's Venezuela invasion didn't happen in isolation. In recent weeks, Trump has issued increasingly aggressive threats against multiple nations. Cuba, he suggests, might be next. Colombia has drawn warnings. And in perhaps the most surreal development, Trump has repeatedly threatened to seize Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark, a NATO ally. These aren't offhand remarks. They represent a fundamental shift in how Trump views America's role in the world, not as a partner in a rules-based international order, but as a power entitled to take what it wants by force. The theoretical framework that's guided democratic nations since World War II, just war theory, depends on powerful nations exercising restraint. Trump has abandoned restraint entirely. He acts without congressional authority, without international support, without even a coherent plan for what comes after military action. Regional leaders are watching with growing alarm. If the United States can simply invade Venezuela and seize its resources, what's to stop it from doing the same elsewhere? What's to stop other powerful nations, China, Russia, from adopting the same approach? The message to the world. Beyond Venezuela's borders, Trump's invasion sends clear signals to every nation on Earth. To weak nations with valuable resources, international law will not protect you. If a powerful nation wants what you have, they can simply take it by force. To regional powers, American promises of partnership and respect for sovereignty are worthless. To traditional American allies, the democratic values you thought defined the alliance are negotiable at best. To authoritarian rivals like Russia and China, feel free to adopt the same approach. If America can invade Venezuela for oil, why can't Russia expand further? Why can't China take Taiwan by force? Chinese state media has already begun making this exact argument, pointing to Venezuela to justify their own territorial ambitions. Russian propagandists gleefully highlight American hypocrisy. Trump may think he's demonstrated American strength. What he's actually done is tear down the framework that made American power legitimate rather than merely feared. Conclusion: when the rules die. In the pre-dawn hours of January 3rd, something more than a government fell in Venezuela. The post-World War II international order sustained fatal damage. For nearly 80 years, that order operated on a simple principle: nations cannot simply take what they want from weaker neighbors by military force. Trump has dispensed with the pretense. His Venezuela invasion represents naked imperialism. Identify a resource you want, use military force to seize it, install a puppet government to facilitate extraction. The tragedy isn't just what's happening to Venezuela. It's what happens when the rules collapse entirely, when every nation concludes that might makes right. We've seen this world before. It gave us 2 world wars and 90 million deaths. The UN Charter was written in blood to prevent us from returning to it. Trump has led us back anyway, marching into what one observer called his Neanderthal world of brute force, with big oil media cheering every step.